environment. And apparently he's splashing white for something, Reed, and I didn't know he was doing that.
Yeah, well, he's got some nice white cards. His deck is certainly primarily Golgari, but touching into white for a couple really well-placed removal spells and a couple of rares that we'll see if we can see in this match.
Ooh,
I don't want to
excellent.
spoil it for
All
you
right.
just yet.
Maxime Augur is the opponent here. Goblin Electromancer on 2. Both players sitting at 4-0 here in round 5. And Goblin Electromancer, kind of a key part of the puzzle if you're playing Izzet. Looks like Maxime is also splashing white.
Yep, yeah, so we have Golgari touching into white on the left side and Izzet touching into white on the right side. Both for 2 luminous bonds, among other things.
Makes sense. No Pelt Collector on turn 1 though, Frank. Come on. We saw that happen both games a couple of rounds ago. Here's a Centaur Peacemaker from Scarin. Both players going to gain 4 life.
Centaur Peacemaker, a nice one for particularly the slower, more defensively slanted Selesnya or 3-color decks. I think Frank is pretty happy with both players gaining 4 life. At this point, when he's a little bit behind, when he wants to slow down, we talked to Frank about choosing to draw first when he was in the booth with us a few rounds ago.
Spinal Centipede here from Scarin. No play from Augur. And is just going to take his turn. And you know, you talked about symmetrical effects on that Centaur Peacemaker, but the real kind of unwritten rule is that it's not really symmetrical when you do it right.
Exactly, yeah. If you can build your deck to take more advantage of that effect than your opponent, all the better. But you know what? Even in the cases where it is purely symmetrical, you still get a 3-mana 3/3.
Yeah.
That's above rate.
Electrostatic Field here for Maxime. An 0-4 defender that pings the opponent every time you cast an instant or sorcery.
Sure, and that's another reason why Centaur Peacemaker is nice. If you play against an opponent that's trying to piecemeal 1 damage at a time, you can really frustrate them.
Dawn of Hope. All right, Reed, you alluded to it. One of the reasons Scarin is splashing white. This card's an all-out bomb, and Augur knows it and has to use a counter spell, on it.
Yeah, Augur is just breathing a sigh of relief here that he was able to answer that card with a counter spell, because with the game shaping up to be a stall, drawn-out type of game, that card's virtually impossible for Izzet to beat. You can't get it off the battlefield. You can't really do anything to force past those 1/1 tokens. So that I think Augur, in a way, dodged a bullet there, being prepared with the Ionize.
Dulcer of Lights there for Scarin. Yeah, I've been in a position where I was completely in control and winning a game. My opponent played Dawn of Hope, and, well, it was the Dawn of their hope because then they won.
Mm-hmm.
So strong.
One of my favorite cards that I've gotten to play with so far here in Guilds of Ravnica.
Luminous Bonds takes care of the Dulcer of Lights from Frank Scarin. But how about a second one? Back over to Augur. Rampaging Monument.
Seen him before.
All right, I think we've seen it in almost every game we've watched. Feels that way anyway. Very popular card, as you pointed out, goes in any deck. So not a surprise. Scarin's deck, he mentioned to us, he wasn't ecstatic about it.
I think he was being a little modest. His deck looks strong to me.
Okay.
With the one caveat that, his mana's not great. He has a 3-color deck with, basic Plains is his only source of white mana, so that's not ideal, but the power level is there, and I like his creature base. This is the type of deck that I think can perform very well in sealed deck.
Oh, this is a nice one here. Golgari Find Broker brings back the Dawn of Hope.
Unbelievable. That's a great play.
Wow, it's not just creatures that she can get back.
Any permanent card, that's right.
I love that card. It already looks good, but it's just even exceeded that. And now Frank Scarron is poised to run away with this game if Auger can't do anything about it.
That's right. If I'm Auger here, I'm starting to feel a sense of urgency. Like, I need to force the action. I need to find a flying creature. I need to somehow navigate that I can be attacking with my Rampaging Monument. I mean, it's tough if his hand just doesn't lend itself to that, but he knows that he's going to lose to this Dawn of Hope if the game goes on indefinitely.
Luminous Bonds locks down the Rampaging Monument on Auger's side of the battlefield. And conveniently, Scarron has 4 mana, including at least 1 white left up. Dowser of Lights turns sideways.
Yep, big enough to attack through the 0/4 electrostatic fields. Auger doesn't want to block, doesn't want to double block. It would be pretty ugly, pretty expensive way to trade for Dowser of Lights.
Down to 16. Gateway Plaza pays for it. Kind of trying to decide whether the path to turn.
Yeah, I don't envy this position, sort of helpless in the face of Dawn of Hope, just waiting to, well, maybe draw something, maybe a series of good top decks in a row, but more likely probably just get buried by Dawn of Hope.
And here's a statue to destroy the Luminous Bonds that was on his second Dowser of Lights. So now he's got pressure on the board with those pair of 4/5s. Dawn of Hope ready to make tokens whenever he wants. Pay 2, draw a card.
Right, so Scarron could have just spent his 4 mana making a token with Dawn of Hope, but instead he smells blood a little bit here. He's going to capitalize on Auger having a weak draw, free up his 4/5 attacker, and just send them in.
In they come to the red zone. We're lining up a double block here with the Fearless Halberdier and the Goblin Electromancer. So we are going to trade off here, getting in for 4, Auger down to 12.
And Maxime Auger in trouble on every metric here. He's losing the long game, he's losing the short game. He really needs to do something special if he's going to get back into it.
Smells like a Watcher in the Mist to me.
Yeah, that'll be a good start, at least a flying creature and one that can hold off everything besides the Dowser of Hope.
Or just a tap concede in this case.
Sure.
Frank Scarron's going to take down game number 1 here in our time walk match.
You know, I really can't blame him in that situation where you're like, you know what, I'm going to lose this game almost for sure, but it might take a long time. Let me just concede and give myself enough time to have a chance to win the next 2.
There's that Pelt Collector on turn 1.
A great start for Scarron. Now, I did mention that Scarron is splashing for 2 white rares.
Yes.
Do you have a guess at what the second one is besides Dawn of Hope?
Oh, my gosh.
It's a trick question.
Oh, is it?
It's a second Dawn of Hope.
Oh, boy. That is great. Yeah, he was kind of putting us on a little bit. Come on, you got 2 Dawn of Hopes. That's not bad.
But that's why you see, you know, Frank is a conservative player. He's well in tune with the subtleties of a mana base, and he was not happy when we talked to him about this 3-color mana base. But that's one of the reasons that you might do something like this. Okay, I have 2 super powerful rares in white. I'm just going to play 4 basic planes because I have to. You know,
right.
as a player who plays for consistency and wants my deck to function well every game, I don't want to do it, but that's just what my cards are telling me to do.
And sometimes you just have to say to yourself, the sacrifice is worth it. Oh, look at this. Collar the Culprit here on the Wishcoin Crab.
That's off the sideboard for Scarron.
Pelt Collector's chipped in for a couple of damage here. Auger down to 17. Luminous Bonds is able to deal with a leapfrog early on in the game.
Frank with a good draw here, you know, Pelt Collector curving into removal spells, but actually not the draw that capitalizes on Pelt Collector the most. He would rather just be slamming giant creatures.
think I spotted a hypothesical in Auger's hand. Pellet collector in for another one. And no follow-up play there for Skarin.
Yeah, I think what's going on is he probably has some black cards in his hand, and
Sure.
white is his splash color, which means that black is a color that he's sort of reliant on having. His deck not going to deliver much if he can't find black mana, but he did. There it is.
Electrostatic field into play for Maxime. How about a giant worm for Frank Skarin?
So he's going to put this under the stack, wait for a response from Auger, and if it resolves, if it's not met by Ionize or Sinister Sabotage, then he'll go ahead and put the counter on the Pellet Collector.
All right, he's going to put it on. Pellet Collector grows to a 2/2. Gosh, I thought, I was pretty sure Auger had Ionize in hand as well.
It's possible, and maybe he's just being conservative. Maybe he has a different answer to the Siege Worm.
And there it is, Luminous Bonds.
But this is the risk that he didn't find his 6th land, so now he has to let his mana go to waste, then tap 3 on his turn for Luminous Bonds and let the shields down. And he could now risk getting into this pattern where he's always playing from behind and never has a chance to snag something with Ionize. So I definitely respect being conservative with the permission spell, but just there's a risk as well. And it may not work out well for Maxime Auger given that he didn't hit his 6th land drop.
Sure strike here on the electrostatic field, able to take care of the Pellet Collector, but there it is.
So there's
Shields are
Dawn
down.
of Hope. It's both a great reason for Maxime to have saved his Ionize, but also a super punishing card to come down when he's tapped out. What a nightmare scenario.
Yeah, and the thing is, sometimes you think to yourself, it's their splash, it's their one of. He doesn't know it's a 2 of in Skarin's deck. Five mana still up for Frank Skarin as well. It costs 4 to make a 1/1 life-linking soldier off of Dawn of Hope. And every time you gain life, you can pay 2 to draw a card. So a nice little engine built into one card.
Yeah, so this is both a card that can fuel itself if you're willing to devote a lot of mana into it. You know, make a token, attack with the token, gain a life, draw a card. But it also incidentally can trigger off of anything else that Frank has to gain life, like that Centaur Peacemaker that we saw in Game 1, any other lifelink creatures.
So here we go, gaining a life off of this attack, and it's even better right now given the fact that Maxime only has an 0/4 left to block. We're going to cash that in for a card.
Dawn of Hope is one of those super fun cards to play with where it's like, okay, I have all of these options with what I can spend my mana on, and they're all great. I can draw cards and win that way. I can just ignore the card draw ability and sink all my mana into making tokens.
There's the Peacemaker. Oh, this is going to get Ionized, though. But he also had 2 mana up to pay for the life gain draw card off of that, too. That poor Ionize. It was meant for bigger things. Burglar Rat, though, is going to rip the last card. Oh, no, it wasn't the last card. Excuse me. A card out of Maxime's hand, which was Maximized Altitude, which, you know, there's some discard in this set, but Jumpstart cards being discarded is one of the other great things about Jumpstart. Nothing to cast it on now, though.
Right, looks like Maxime will have to change the board state significantly before he can think about using the Maximized Altitude, but you're right that it goes to the graveyard is something he can be happy to find there a bit later.
Whisper Agent flashing in here at this attack from Skarin, who, you know, only attacking for 2, but it is a big deal as he'll be able to draw another card, gain more life, has access to more white mana to make more soldiers if he wants. He's going to draw here. finds another planes and pass the turn backs over to Maxime.
So this was the card that he surveilled to the top. Let's see if it's something that can get him back into this or start getting him back into this.
Yeah, despite the only creature currently on the board for Scarron being a 1/1 rat, make that a 1/1 rat and a 1/1 soldier, it is very, very dire for Augur at this point. No play, though. Passes back over to Scarron. Might have been an instant that he found.
I can tell you that Maxime Augur's best card in his deck, and the one that he might be looking to set up in this situation, is Dream Eater.
Oh, okay.
That's a mythic rare, 6 mana flash, 4/3 flying, surveil 4 when it enters the battlefield, and bounce your opponent's best creature. So, I mean, that is exactly what he needs to be looking for here, is a way to unload a lot of damage quickly in the air, because trying to attack on the ground through those persistent 1/1 lifelink tokens is going to be a tough way to do it.
I think I can see in his hand, he has a Luminous Bonds. I feel like there's a Capture Sphere and a Connive Concoct.
Yeah, that's precisely what he doesn't want, is to have a lot of reactive cards with no good targets, and just give Frank ample time to make more tokens.
2 more soldiers join the party for Frank Scarron. All right, we're all coming in. All 4 1/1s swing on in. Gain 3 life. How much do you want to pay to draw cards?
Yeah, so keep in mind these are 3 separate triggers. He could pay 6 to draw 3 if he would like. He's probably going to take them one at a time and perhaps adjust his plan based on what he draws. For example, if he draws something that he's excited to spend his mana on, he might say, okay, that's enough. We'll let the other 2 triggers go unused.
I will say this, though. I mean, I don't think we're anywhere near that point because we're not playing a Dimir deck for Frank Scarron, but I've decked myself in this format with Surveil.
Yep. But that's the good thing about Dawn of Hope, is the card draw is optional. So once you get close to that point, you can just say, all right, I'm skipping the card draw, dumping all my mana to making tokens.
Yeah. There was a game where I was extremely close, and I was playing Dimir Splashing Green, and I had Underrealm Lich on the table, and my opponent good games me, and I'm like, well, I've decked myself. It's all over, you know. And then I didn't die. Underrealm Lich, you're so great.
Yeah, Underrealm Lich is, you know, kind of dicey in that it depletes your library really quickly, but also nice that you can have an empty library and not die, because it does stop you from ever drawing cards.
Murmuring Mystic here for Maxime is an interesting parallel effect in a way to Dawn of Hope.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good one. It blocks the tokens, and if Maxime can start making an Air Force.
Oh, cancel that order.
Yeah, it was a big if.
Yeah, Deadly Visit. Gonna pay a visit to that Murmuring Mystic. Down it goes, Swamp into the yard for Scarron the Scry, Surveil 2. And the army keeps on growing, this time swinging in for 5. 2 obligatory blocks here. One soldier down, pass the turn, no card draw there, not needed. Probably a lot of good stuff in hand. Can make another soldier at the end of Maxime's turn if he wants.
And that's another thing about Dawn of Hope, is you get to this point in the game where, okay, even if Maxime has a miracle card, you know, boarded in a disenchant off his splash to get rid of the Dawn of Hope, it's not going to save him.
No.
Even if he has a board sweeper, get rid of all the tokens, it's not going to save him, because Frank has amassed such an advantage on so many different metrics,
right,
that it just takes a lot to get back into the game. And in fact, I would go so far as to say you can't get back into the game. The only thing Maxime can try to do is win with something like that Dream Eater, but 25 life is a lot to overcome.
Oh, absolutely. In for another 5 here for Frank. And this has been the play pattern over the past couple of turns. In for a bunch. One of my soldiers dies. Cash it in. Gain more life up to 29. Meanwhile, by the way, chipping away at Auger's life total too with that ever-growing soldier army. Auger down to 8. And there's a pilfering imp, which can be an Air Force or an insurance plan.
Right, pilfering imp can make sure the coast is clear next turn. You can't use it right away because of summoning sickness, but he could tap it and sacrifice it to look at Maxime's hand, but Maxime's going to stop that by capture sphering it ahead of time.
Might as well. Auger here trying to figure out if there's any way to get himself out of this absolute mess.
Yeah, he picked up Connive Concoct, which can allow him to gain control of a creature with power 2 or less, but you know what? It's just another one of those reactive cards that's really ineffective against Dawn of Hope.
Experimental Frenzy here, which is exactly what he would need. An Experimental Frenzy to beat what's happening to him on board right now, but it's a bizarre card.
Very weird card, you're right. So this precludes you from casting spells from your hand, but instead you can play the top card of your library. So the advantage is that you can play multiple spells in the same turn, and they're not costing you cards to do it. So imagine he draws his next card. Okay, I'll play a land off the top. I'll play a spell off the top. Okay, I have another spell on top. I'll play that for free. So you can generate a lot of value, and then it conveniently has this clause that you can destroy it if you ever need to unlock the spells in your hands.
It was funny, you know, the first time I saw this card, I was like, oh, this is garbage. Why would you ever play with such a card? But after I saw it in play one time, I realized the value. Drawing so many cards a turn. The swings keep coming here for Frank Scarron. 6 in this time. Auger able to block 2 of it. Remember, cannot play any cards from his hand currently because of that Experimental Frenzy. Counting up Scarron's lands. How many soldiers can you make? He's going to draw 1 card at the very least here off of that life gain. Being very careful here despite being very far ahead. Conclave Tribunal is the play for Scarron. Premium removal spell is going to take care of that Experimental Frenzy.
Yeah, an alternative he could have used the Tribunal to get rid of the Luminous Bonds on Siege Worm. Maybe just go for a quicker win. But no reason to go for a quick win when you're this far ahead, having
when you
this
can
much
savor
fun.
the destruction of your opponent.
Of course,
is that what you meant?
The slow, painful death.
Auger falls down to 4. Frank Scarron up to 34 off that last attack. Pitiless Gorgon hits the table as well for him. You have 2 blockers so far. For Auger. And there's Connive Concoct to steal the Gorgon.
That's pretty good. Auger really wanted to find an untapped creature to steal as a blocker, but again, this is just fighting over peanuts. That's not going to determine the outcome of the game.
Pitiless Gorgon is one of the #1 targets for Connive. Back over to Frank Scarron. Augur on 4 life, 3 creatures back to block, 4 mana up and available. And I mean, this has been one long painful deck. Excuse me, death for Augur here. The deck not as painful. It seems okay.
Props to him for not giving up,
I
continuing
agree.
to fight against insurmountable odds. It's builds character.
In for 6 here from Scarron, and there is a handshake. Frank Scarron takes down this time walk match 2 games 2-0 over Maxime Augur. This pretty cool deck that we didn't, exactly get to see the entire use of earlier in our rounds, but the double Dawn of Hope splash, chef's kiss. That's
Yeah,
what
we talked in the morning about the slower blue decks being overperformers, at least in the beginning stages of the tournament, but that's sort of the next level. Dawn of Hope, if your opponent's trying to play a slow game against you, it's just an amazing card. So I think if Frank's able to find his mana and play long games, he doesn't get run over, I think his deck is really well set up to make a good run at 8-1 or 9-0 record.
And that's exactly the thing we're going to be keeping our eye on as we continue on through day 1 here, is what kind of deck is usually ending up with the upper hand. So really interesting stuff. Thanks, Reed. All right, well, we have more Magic from round 6 coming your way in just a minute.